What's up?
Ready for book club?
I am obsessed.
This is the worst.
What do you mean?
No, idiot.
Welcome to book club. Welcome to book club.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to book club.
Welcome back to book club.
We're together, and
Thank
so
God.
everything is good. Wow. And we're outside.
We're touching grass.
We're touching
today.
grass. Well, concrete, but we're near grass. So if you hear nature sounds, you're welcome.
A lot of you should also go touch grass.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're talking about a subject
Yeah. That everyone, I think, involved in this needs to be touching grass. Also, if you hear cat meowing, I don't know if that's going to pick up. There's 3 cats out here.
Oh, the babies.
And none of them are really getting along at the moment. So
One of them got their balls cut off, and now he smells different.
he does smell different, and the girls are very confused.
The girls are like, what the Halle Berry?
What the Halle Berry is that? And he's just trying to be a sweetie old boy.
Yeah.
Well, anyway. Oh, is that him making that sound?
I'm sad.
Him sad? Do you need to let him inside?
No, he's fine. He just wants to look at the door.
Okay.
He's self-aware. He's confused by who the fuck is in the reflection. He said, who is that?
But today we are talking about Millennial versus Gen Zs, specifically on BookTok.
Or Bookstagram or BookTube. Or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it.
We have a couple of things. Hello, Mochi. We have a couple of things to preface before we get into it. First thing, we're going to try to keep it focused on BookTok and TikTok in general. We kind of ramble. We tend to ramble a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to keep it focused. You're being so sweet right now, Mochi. I'm so scared you're going to bite me. Oh, my God.
Oh, my dude. She's being nice. She
Yeah,
is. If you put your leg down, she'll make biscuits on you.
Okay, that's my favorite. Wow, this never happens. Oh, my God. Her cat's crawling across my lap, if you can't see. Anyway.
Sweats on. Go make biscuits on her, not me.
She doesn't like me as much. Anyways, first thing, we're going to try to keep it on about BookTok. Second thing, when we're talking about the generalized in generation people we're going to be focusing on the women and the girls, because men
are a completely different subject, there's a lot of unpacking that we have to do from generations
and if
prior.
you've watched any of our other episodes, you'll know that we Marlon, get off the screen.
Marlon, bad cat, get down.
If you've watched any of our other episodes, you will know that especially on weeks that we are PMSing, which is currently, it's not great when we start talking about men. Okay, we get a little angry and we ramble, so we're gonna try to avoid that as well.
Because the more we talk about them, the more power we give them, and we don't want them to have power. We want to take it away.
Okay, we're talking about women today.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're talking about women.
Yep.
Yours is really loud. So we're gonna talk about focus on women. Also, we're not men, and we're not.
Yeah,
we don't want to do it.
We're really talking about
And
our
BookTok is mainly a place for the women, the girls, the gays, the theys. So that's kind of what we're gonna be like.
And we're talking about
on.
our personal observations, our personal experiences, and we also did talk to some older actual millennials, because we are Gen Z.
We are like prime Gen Z.
Yeah, we're prime Gen Z. We talked to a young millennial, an older millennial, which isn't to say that we can speak for every single person on the planet. So take everything we say with a grain of salt.
As always, take everything we say with a grain of salt.
We are not.
We're not professional.
We're not professionals. We don't know fuck all.
We don't know anything.
We're just talking about our own opinions and shit that we see. And also just
and
on
also
the internet.
Don't take it too seriously.
Yeah, relax. Okay, we have a list of things. We're organized today, sort of. So let's start with the first point. This one is we're not going to dip into the hot and heavy stuff just yet. We're going to start it out a little light. The first thing I had was the difference between millennials book talkers or book girlies, whatever, and Gen Z book talkers, and how they view Harry Potter. Millennials were definitely the prime generation for Harry Potter. It was very 90s. And Gen Z is definitely, I feel like they were the first generation to be like, actually, have y'all looked at what that author is doing? have y'all seen the shit that she said on the internet?
Yeah.
Because Gen Z is the first generation to be like, hey, did you see what that person said on the internet? And do something about it, make a scene about it.
Yeah.
And I do feel like millennials are they're more likely to be like, separate the art from the artist type of thing. And I don't think that is always a bad thing. Gen Z is definitely, in my opinion, on the other end of the spectrum, where there is most of the time will not separate the art from the artist, which is also not really a bad thing. With this one, I actually feel like I fall pretty in the middle, because I do watch the Harry Potter movies every fall. Yeah, catch me in Harry Potter world. If I can be there, I'm gonna be there. If I'm gonna take the Pottermore test, I know people think it's cringe. I don't care. I'm a Hufflepuff and I'm gonna talk about it, and I will take the test. Do with that what you will. Am I gonna go out and necessarily spend a whole lot of money?
Am I gonna go buy? No.
Yeah. Well, I do have a wand, but I got it in high school. And actually, it's not true. I lied. I didn't get it in high school. I got it in 2022 when I was in Scotland.
I was in high school. I was 22.
See, maybe I lean a little more towards the millennial in that regard, because I was in Scotland and it was everywhere, and I had just read this series for the first time, because I didn't grow up reading Harry Potter. I didn't read it until I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I saw the movies. I was like, this shit kind of bumps.
No, it is really cool. And I feel like it was kind of obviously, I mean, there's I don't know when Game of Thrones came out, but there's Game of Thrones, but I feel like Harry Potter was kind of like the starting point. It was kind of like the first stone thrown for the fantasy girlies,
especially book to movie adaptation.
Yeah, because then there was
Twilight. Yeah, which is also very millennial.
Yeah.
The cats were fighting.
And then I was talking about earlier, there's the millennials that have the
Harry Potter tattoos.
And all that, and I wonder if and
it's seen as super cringe now.
Right,
sometimes
now it's
even problematic.
Yikes. And I'm wondering if in 10-15 years the girlies with ACOTAR or Throne of Glass tattoos, if we're gonna be looked at like the millennials.
Because I'll say right now, if we had been 18 and up when we were first started reading, we started reading Hunger Games, Divergent, The Fault in Our Stars.
Thank God.
I would have had an okay tattoo on my body. I would have had the entire Divergent, every
unfortunately,
category.
I would have had in this font, which is millennial. I've got typewriter font on my arm.
I
would have had font. It's a metaphor in typewriter font. And I just
with a little
know
cigarette.
I just know.
Oh my God. I would have had the mustache on the inside of my finger.
Yeah, I would absolutely know. Thank God.
Oh yeah.
Thank God.
I would have had the Tris Divergent birds.
The birds. Yep.
Would have had the birds.
Yeah.
For sure. I would have had the Mockingjay even.
Yeah. No, I would have had a bunch of really cringe shit.
Yeah.
So I can't even, can't even make fun of millennials for that. Because I would have done it
had I had the access.
And quite frankly, we're doing it now. Do you know how many girlies I see with the "I do not yield" tattoos? And I think they're sick. This is not a hate. This is not hate at all.
Yep.
I think they're cool, and I think all I think tattoos are just cool in general. But I'm wondering if in 10 to 15 years, if we're gonna
because or even Fourth Wing. I literally just got a fucking dragon
tattoo. Yeah.
I think especially when things start to get put, then this has happened to millennial women. This is going to happen to Gen Z women. When there is a book series specifically or a fantasy world or something that is targeted towards women that is turned into a mainstream movie or TV show, it is automatically seen as bad TV. They're bad books. They're shit on paper. They're just trash for women. And we didn't see that with Game of Thrones because of how many men love that show.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm going to say on the men in that regard. But I do think that Fourth Wing, in my prediction, is going to be the next big book to movie series.
Yeah.
The way that Twilight was. And I think, out of Throne of Glass, ACOTAR, Fourth Wing, I think Fourth Wing is going to be the fastest one. And obviously the rom-coms are happening. But rom-coms have always been treated that way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I think Fourth Wing is going to be the next big Twilight, basically.
Yeah, I agree.
We are going to be seeing the people who are going to the midnight releases, getting the
Mhm.
books, following Rebecca Yarros to the grave of all her characters. Like, I think we are going to be seeing the way that millennials are seen with Twilight.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Like
with that.
how it was like there were Twilight clothing lines in Harry
Mhm.
not Harry Potter, in Aeropostale and Hollister.
People were getting their hair cut like
Mhm.
Alice.
Yep, and
I can definitely see. Literally, I was talking to Carrie the other day about, well, I'm kind of bored with like my hair. Should I pull a Violet and like,
Yep.
should I bring back
get
the
a silver
ombre?
balayage.
Like in 2016, my hair was silver and it was a little ombre moment and it was cunty. I can't even lie. But I was literally talking to her the other day. Should I bring that back?
Yep.
And it's so Fourth Wing coded. And in 10, 15 years, like if I ever had kids, they'd be like, Mom, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Mom, what the Halle Berry?
When I start to get gray hairs, you bet your bottom. That's the only time in my life I'll ever be able to have silver hair without completely damaging it. I'm going full silver. If anything, salt and pepper. Like I want that so deep in my bones. I don't care. It feels like a fantasy character to me and I want it.
Yeah.
Here's my prediction though. I think when it was millennials with the Twilight stuff. My oldest sister is millennial. She's one of the women that we talked to in preparation for this episode. She's a young millennial, so like right on the cusp before Gen Z started. And when she was a big Twilight teenager and young adult, and I feel like it was a little bit more of a generation of, there was no term for pick me, but it was a very heavy time for women hating women, and they didn't have this girls movement. It was like you were just lucky if you were one, even without the label. And when somebody started to shit on Twilight or what it was, maybe they would be a little more like reserved about it, or they would be like, oh, no, I'm like, I don't even like actually care that much. Somebody bought this jacket for me, actually. No, I did not get my hair cut that way because of the movie. I had this first even. I like it because I liked it. So something like that. I'm not saying my sister did that. I was too young to really pay attention what the hell she was doing. But it definitely gave that that vibe a little bit more. I think Gen Z is going to be I would hope, would be a little more like, hey,
I like this.
This is my thing, and you're not going to ruin it for me.
We've kind of always been like that, because while that was happening with Twilight, we were around 11, 12, 13, and we were doing the One Direction thing. And I remember when somebody would shit on One Direction, I'd just get louder about how much I liked One Direction. Like at one point in time, yours was this too. Do you remember? And like circa 20... I don't know. It must have been 7th, 8th grade.
I feel like our specific era of Gen Z is the era of fangirls.
Yes, of fangirls. But like my name on Instagram was at Mrs. Maddie Horan.
Oh, mine was Carrie Styles. Oh man, and I would get butthurt if I saw another girl at school with the same thing.
Yeah, because I'd be like, they copied me. But like also
I was copying.
Yeah, and like we wanted to like still not be a dickhead to other people, but like we just got, like, when somebody would hate on One Direction, we just found new boy bands to like too. Like we would get loud. It was Justin Bieber, and then it was One Direction, and then Fifth Harmony.
I've definitely never been the kind of girl that was like unaware that I was basic. I've always leaned on the I've always liked Taylor Swift. I've always liked the color pink. I had one little phase of it when I was in 3rd grade. I had a friend who was like, I hate pink. And I was like, yeah, me too. It lasted about 3 weeks. Because I was like, actually, nah.
Pink is...
I love pink. I love pink. I wanted to play dress up when I was little.
Same with Taylor Swift. Like, this was later in our...
I was not really embarrassed. I was in my 8th grade. I remember the moment that I finished reading The Fault in Our Stars. I was in my 8th grade theater room and closed the book, and around other people, mind you. School was out, but like was in there with other people, other friends, closed the book, threw it at the wall, screamed, and cried.
Honestly, really
At school. I
fair.
was not shy about it at all. And when people were like, girl, what is wrong with you? I was like,
You don't understand.
Augustus Waters. Why would they do that to him?
Yeah.
I was losing it publicly around people, not just on the internet.
And even later in like our endeavors of being a fangirl, the Taylor Swift is over party didn't partake in that.
Yeah.
Did not partake in that.
No.
Absolutely not. I was 1989 came out our freshman year of high school, like the OG 1989.
We're
And-
25, by the way.
Yeah.
The women that we talk to are 30 and
40 something. We talked to her sister and my mom because I am a Gen Z, but I had a very, very young mom. So she's
you're also the oldest.
Yeah,
And so your little brother was raised on things you had.
Yes.
I'm the youngest of 3, a millennial, an earlier Gen Z, like literally, what's the year? 1997?
1995, technically.
Okay. A millennial and
It depends
early
on
Gen
who
Z.
you ask, though, too.
Yeah. But still, I was the youngest, but raised by millennials from my siblings. And then my mom was Gen X. So that also influenced my hand-me-downs were 90s baby hand-me-downs.
Yeah.
You had all new clothes.
No, I did not.
Well, not new, but like you didn't have
My
older,
mom was 17.
you didn't have older sisters that you were getting.
No, I had Bailey.
Oh, yeah, you had Bailey.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So I got all of her stuff.
Okay, that's fair. But in your home when it came to TV, were you the one controlling the TV or was it your mom? Because like for me, I didn't get to pick my TV shows. Lindsay picked my TV shows.
No, I picked the TV shows
Okay.
unless it was in the living room and then we were watching CNN because Kendall is a CNN girly.
Okay.
But like if it was like cartoons,
Like if I
like
was home alone with my sister, like
she was picking the
babysitting,
cartoons.
There were no cartoons.
Oh.
It was Fresh Prince or I don't know, Ugly Betty maybe,
Oh, yeah.
General Hospital or Grey's Anatomy. And then if we
Look at the
watched
puppy.
Oh, it is a puppy. If we watched cartoons, it was going to be like I don't know, Cat Dog. Did you ever watch that show?
What is that?
It's like a Nickelodeon, I think, 90s cartoon. We watched Cat Dog or
And what age were you at this?
Little,
Oh, yeah, absolutely
below the
not.
age of 5.
Mm-mm.
I could sing the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song below the age of 5.
No, at the age of under 5, I was watching Ice Age religiously.
If
which,
I was
like,
on my own, I
same.
was watching PBS Kids or like Dragon Tales.
I would watch Dragon Tales, but mainly I would watch like Dora
And the Barbie movies. I would watch the Barbie movies.
and like a High School Musical,
Mm-hmm.
anything Disney and musical related. So
Same.
The Sound of Music watched religiously
Wow, that's
for
crazy.
some reason. And Singing in the Rain. I was really obsessed with those.
That my mom, one of the only CDs I remember my mom having was Chicago. Yeah, I would go crazy to Chicago.
Chicago went
But
nuts.
we're off topic.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was just some of the prefacing. So yeah, I do think that, the way that we treat fandoms is a little bit different.
Yeah, millennials were more like
But you know what too?
reserved.
I like to see, and this is one of the things I do like about BookTok specifically. I like to see that maybe if the millennials have kind of grown up or pushed that part of their lives away where they don't get excited about things, they don't get obsessed with things.
I
I
feel like-
even had a phase like that
Yeah.
in my early 20s and like late teen years where I was like, I actually don't care about anything ever, and that's lame. Where I'm like, actually, no, I
I do care and I like this.
loving stuff. I love enjoying books and fandoms and being a fangirl. And I feel like some of the Gen Z is helping either their millennial older siblings or even older millennial parents get back into that
Yeah.
and be like, oh, actually, you can
I
get
do
on
like
the internet.
this.
That is why there are some people. So that's why there's millennial book talk where it's like, I feel like sometimes Gen Z is almost like, aw. Like, it is sweet. They're coming back into their own, but occasionally you're like, wow, that was
That
a really
is a little-
millennial thing to say.
That was pretty cringy, actually.
But thank
like,
you. But
honestly,
I'm happy. I want you there. But
to
every now
be-
and then I'm like, okay.
To
If
be
you tell me,
cringe
if you
is
tell
to
me
be free.
to be cringe is to be free. If you tell me I did a thing,
No.
and you just washed your dishes, and like, I don't know, left a dish in the sink. Okay, relax.
I can't handle that. I did a thing.
I did a thing, or, I don't know. What's another one?
There's this one
Bae,
millennial
anything
on
bae.
TikTok, and you know what?
Which that is moving
She
into our
gets-
next point, is millennial BookTok slang versus Gen Z slang, and what millennials think Gen Z slang is. And it can, again, to be cringe is to be free, so I'm sure I'll feel the same way in 10 years about myself.
I mean, I feel the same way about myself 10 years ago on the internet.
Yeah, that's fair.
She was cringy, but
What was it? Too
Fierce.
Too fierce for you?
that gave me war flashbacks. Truly. I hate that.
Having non-flash.
That's traumatizing. There is this one TikToker, and I think I don't know if she's BookTok necessarily, but she is a Taylor Swift girl, and she's a millennial. But she's the girl who did Travis Kelce is large boy and Taylor Swift gets to be small girl. That, which like, was it cringe? It was like bad cringy.
It
Like
hurts
I
a
like
little.
recoiled when when it gets put in like the millennial core like cringe videos. Like it's like hurt. Like my stomach does a twist. It's like so cringy. But like honestly, I'm glad they're getting to do this.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in the early 2000s, like late 90s, early 2000s, everything was like, oh, you have to look cool, you have to be cool, you have to give off this like,
Yeah,
you have
which
to
I do
be this
think they're,
way.
and I have felt this way a lot. A lot of millennials are getting into their 30s. I have always, because I grew up watching 13 Going on 30, and it really stuck there in my brain, formed my frontal lobe actually. I think a lot of them, like you get to your 30s, especially as a woman, you just stop giving a fuck.
Yeah, you rediscover yourself.
And I think that is so important. That is
Yeah.
so special. It is so
It is
special.
so special.
Another thing too that I just thought of, wasn't on the list, was millennial book merch versus Gen Z book merch and like fandom merch and stuff like that, because millennials really love words. They love having wordy shit all over, front and back, words everywhere, quotes everywhere.
Yeah.
The longest quote you can find in that really thin, swoopy cursive font right across the front.
Yeah.
And the Ivory Ella color schemes.
God.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And then Gen Z tends to be a little more minimal, or like they'll use like a symbol, or it's like based off of like a vintage tee, which
vintage tea or like college tea,
college
like
tea, which I feel like could also in the future become a little cringe.
yeah,
Where everything just kind of looks like
like how
a
we look
copy
at of the 90s. Yeah,
Mhm.
we love to take inspiration from the 90s.
old. Yeah, a lot of millennials still very 2010 type style.
Chevron.
Chevron, yeah. Oh, they love. Reflection in the glass sliding door.
He doesn't know who it is. I'm sorry to this man.
I'm sorry to this man. I don't know this man. Okay, next thing. Pretty similar. Millennial book covers and millennial
Yes.
authors. I'm talking, I don't know if they're technically millennial. They probably are. I'm talking Allie Hazelwood, Emily Henry, Tessa Bailey, a lot of the rom-com.
A lot of the rom-coms. And like I feel like it's really fitting for rom-coms just because I feel like they've kind of always been that way. Like even if you look at like the Gen X boomer books, like it was like a prince and knight armor.
Yeah,
and
but
a
those are
woman being
almost,
swept
those almost
away.
give like
Renaissance painting. Yeah, that's
Renaissance
true.
romance is a
When
separate
did we
thing.
when did we transition to the cartoon?
Yeah, millennial book covers to us mean bright colors, the cartoon characters, big big words like unhoneymooners, the hating game, some locked and load. I don't know.
Locked and
I
loaded.
don't know. I don't know. Wedding crashers.
Yeah.
Super long things like we went to a wedding and hate each other and actually coincidentally fell in love. Something like that.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I don't mind the cartoon covers. That's what I started reading when I got back into reading books as an adult, was rom-coms and stuff. So I was kind of used to it. They kind of give Disney characters on the front. They're not my favorite covers to look at. On my bookshelf, I would never put them cover out. Emily Henry, I think, does it best because she doesn't necessarily do faces.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of bodies, almost looks like a
vibe.
painting or something.
Yeah.
Especially her limited edition ones, like the beach read
Yeah.
hardcover. Stunning. Beautiful. But I like, the spines, colorful, look happy, whatever. However, I am not the norm for Gen Z. Most Gen Z hate those covers.
Some people, I feel like it's like, there's not really a middle ground. You either really can vibe with them or you're like,
It
what the
depends.
fuck?
I think it depends on how picky you are about what your bookshelf looks like.
I mean, I'm going to have them on my bookshelf, but like, do I love looking at them? No. I like the spine, like the spines are fine. Like
Yeah.
I really like I like having a section of like dark fantasy
Yeah.
and then like the bright pink and
Romance
blues
section, yeah.
and purples and romance section. Like I think that's cute. But like you said, I'm not putting it face
Front.
I
think
out
for
on my
me,
bookshelf on display.
I do think it'll be really funny in the future when, in my mind, in my future home, I want a big library. Like I want the floor to ceiling shelves. I want it to feel a little darker, cozy, whatever, my little hobbit hole fantasy library. And it's all going to be these beautiful books. And then I'm just going to have a whole section
Neon
that's like
section.
neon. And they're so bright. I'm going to have to get like a screen and be like, this is my summer section. Or it's just like hockey. I'm going to be like,
Yeah.
so are you an athlete?
No.
No.
Just
They aren't even
really
athletes
like
in those
hockey.
books.
I just really like hockey.
Yeah. But yeah, no, but it is, and in those books too, there's a lot of millennial. I see memes on TikTok about this all the time. Millennials writing a Gen Z character, and it's like them saying like crazy shit, like something. Oh, I'm on a fake date, and they tell me that something that is so slay. Okay,
Yeah.
slay diva.
You know what is also millennial character core?
They kind of talk like Alexis Rose.
And the over caffeinated shit. Like you'll get a millennial character. I don't know if you noticed this. Well, I literally can't even function until I've had 5 shots of espresso.
Yep,
Or
the coffee
5
addiction.
Yeah.
Or there's a couple I've seen. Marlon, that is so unnecessary. Marlon, I don't know if you can hear this cat meowing, but maybe I'll put in some of the camera audio. But another thing I've seen with the caffeine addiction is like they either have a crazy caffeine addiction or both, but the coffees they drink are like sugary frappuccino caramel macchiato with cinnamon.
Or it'll be the completely different. And do you know the Senorita Awesome?
No.
You don't know what Senorita Awesome is?
No.
Okay, go bring up the next point, and I'm going to find Senorita Awesome.
That sounds terrible.
It is.
Okay, I'll move on. Prep myself, I guess. Okay, the next thing is this is kind of a Gen Z and millennial thing, which is a little bit in between. So I'm
Pumpkin spice latte, please. I want it freezing, though. Actually, I just want a regular coffee. Those white girl pumpkin spice lattes annoy me.
I'm in love. Name?
Senorita Awesome. Pumpkin spice latte, please.
no.
You've never seen that?
What is that from? If you couldn't, like I just played the sound from a movie clip. She's ordering a coffee, and
I don't know what this is from.
that's terrible.
I don't know what this is.
That's terrible. If you haven't seen it, look up Senorita Awesome. That is another thing I have seen too, where it's like, oh, they actually feel like they're cool because they don't drink pumpkin spice lattes. I'll tell you right now, a pumpkin spice latte is gross. But you know what I will bust down on?
It's Scream Queens.
Okay, that's fair, I guess. Scream Queens is kind of satire.
Someone said physically pains me every time I watch it, but I cannot look away.
But
That's how I feel with
A s-
millennial cringe, though. Like,
yep.
I can't
a
not
sugar
watch it.
cookie latte, absolutely yes, thank you. I personally don't like pumpkin spice, but people who are like, I actually hate that. That is so cringe, bro. It's a coffee drink. Could you maybe relax?
Yeah.
But then in books, when they're like, it's always like the grumpy sunshine trope, where she's like going to get coffee for some ungodly reason with this mean man, and she's like, could I get the sweetest coffee you have and 5 extra shots of espresso? I can't function without it. And then the grown man is like, black coffee. And also, I hate this bitch right next to me. Somehow we're supposed to fall in love.
The Grumpy Sunshine is very millennial core, actually.
Very
now that I'm
millennial
thinking about
core.
it.
Grumpy
But
Sunshine is very millennial
Gen
core.
Z's, like, I guess, like, Grumpy X Sunshine is millennials' played out trope, but our played out trope is really poorly written enemies to lovers.
Yeah, you're so
Where
right.
they're, like, not actually enemies, or it'll be, like, they're just, like, not actually ever
or,
enemies.
you know what? Also, okay, let me know what you think. If this is millennial or Gen Z core, the one-sided rivalry. Like I'm talking beach read. Like the girl in her inner monologue, that man is her rival.
You know what I feel like it is?
And the guy is like secretly admiring of her and also has no clue that there's a feud, and it's fueled by secondhand embarrassment.
Also, Divine Rivals gave that.
Yep, Divine Rivals gave that.
Beach Read gave that. But you know what I think that is? I think it's a millennial author trying to encapsulate Gen Z. That's what it is. Tell me
You're
I'm wrong.
so right. This like unspoken competitiveness of like, they hate me, don't they?
Yeah.
Like it's almost like a people pleasing,
Mm-hmm.
like deep rooted people pleasing core.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Marlon. Do I need to let him inside?
Let me let him inside.
Okay. Next point was and this one's where we get a little bit deeper into the differences, but just between the generations in general, is, in my opinion, millennials, because they have been alive for longer, they have been through they've been through some shit for sure. And they were born in a time where the shit was starting.
Yeah.
Like, they were born, they knew what it was like to not have a cell phone all the time. They knew what it was like to have zero social media.
Yeah. To not have your whole entire teenage years plastered on.
Yep. They definitely had the internet. They had AWOL chat rooms.
Some of
The
them.
later ones. But they didn't have social media to the extent that we did, and they were the last generation, in our opinion, to be raised on the concept of
the American dream.
the American dream. If, high school might be terrible, things might be terrible right now, political warfare happening.
But it's okay, because what you're going to do is get a degree, you're going to graduate, you're going to get married, you're going to have babies, and then
You'll be financially
you're gonna have a house.
stable, and you'll
and,
be able.
and everything will be fine, as long as you stopped buying those coffees every morning.
Yep.
And then they kept getting older and older, and they stopped buying coffees, and they were like, hey, so the $5 coffees are actually now
They're not adding up to a $50,000 down
right,
payment.
and now
on a
they're
home.
$8, and it's still not adding up to the down payment on the home at a fucking 8% interest rate.
As Maddie's mom said, they were the last generation to drink the Kool-Aid, and they drank the Kool-Aid knowing that it
was
wasn't
kinda
really
fucked
gonna
up.
work. They were just like, oh, my last shot, I guess.
I guess I'll drink this.
And in turn, in our opinion, take this with a grain of salt, millennials give more like deep bed rot in the couch depression. They're a depressed generation for sure. And
it's like stereotypical what you think of when you think
depression.
depressed.
Like gray cloud, gloomy,
Eeyore.
have Eeyore. Yes, they are the Eeyore generation.
Yeah. And we're
And-
like Piglet.
We're like Piglet and Rabbit
Yeah.
mixed into one. If you don't know Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore is the depression guy. Piglet is anxiety-ridden manic. And Rabbit is... I think it's supposed to be like OCD or something, but he's also like control freak, like, oh God, I'm gonna crash out.
Yeah.
Millennials didn't have crash out
Yeah.
the way that Gen Z has a crash out.
I mean, well, there was Britney.
There was Britney.
But she was like the spin-off. She was like
Yes.
the
it was
one-off.
shocking
It was
to see.
shocking. Yeah. But now they're like
Britney Spears, if you didn't pick
yeah.
up on that.
Now it's just like millennials are so like
Tired. They look
they're
tired.
very tired and worn out and exhausted, and like we're worn out and like Gen Z, we're worn out and exhausted, but
We've been living
we're-
in this environment of we know it's
Yeah.
not going to be bad. I think Rebecca Yarros has alluded to this a little bit, that if there is going to be a generation to influence a revolution or
it's gonna be Gen Z.
big massive change, it's going to be Gen Z, because
Mhm.
millennials are still, they're almost just like too tired. Sometimes
tired to try.
they've given up. Is
Yeah.
what it feels like. Sometimes.
Millennials are like if we like point it to like just Americans.
Yeah, this is
millennials
all very
are-
American coded.
Yeah.
If you're not listening from America or you're not from
Let
America
us
in
know
general,
what your country's millennial
Yeah.
versus Gen Z looks like, because honestly, I would love to read
Yeah,
about it.
literally.
But like very American, millennials are like, oh well, I'll just move to another country because this one's already so far in the shitter. And Gen Z's like, I am so patriotic and I like my country so much.
Patriotic in the way that they were patriotic in Hamilton,
Yeah.
where
Like,
they were like,
I am fixing
absolutely not.
this. Yeah, like Gen Z is like millennials are like, I'm gonna ignore it and push it away. And
And
again, this is
brings us-
generalized, but Gen Z is like, no, we're fixing this. You're gonna stay your
Or
ass
I
here,
will
and
say
we're doing
Gen Z
this.
do tend to just kind of scream about it and
Well, yeah, that is
stop
true.
there. I'm hoping we can get to a point where we scream about it and then
And
take
then we
action.
try to do something. Yes,
We are kind of just in the phase where Gen Z is just doing a lot of screaming.
but it's better than ignoring
But
it.
it's better than ignoring it. It's a step forward a little bit. And this brings us to the next point of that I think millennials, when it comes to books specifically, tend to 100% use books as escapism
Yeah,
and disassociate to not focus on the real world, which I do not think is a bad thing. I think escapism to an extent is very necessary in our current environment. You have to be able to take a break and enjoy yourself and think about something else in such an
Yeah.
oversaturation of everything being terrible. However, I do think millennials are much more likely to be the one, in my opinion, to be the ones to say, this book is not political. This is
has
not
no
real
political
life.
relevance.
I'm not even going to try to make personal connections into my real life, which is why I get frustrated too when people say that fantasy and romance and things like that are not helpful in literature in the way that self-help is. Because if you can read a lot of books and think about yourself and think about how are they handling, there's messages and themes all the time in every
Right.
genre. So that's ridiculous in the first place. But I feel like they are much more like millennials are much more likely to read something like Hunger Games.
and not see the political relevance
not
that it has
see-
in society.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
because they're using it, like you said, as that just like
as
form
just,
of
oh,
escapism.
this is just a fun little book series. I don't have to think into it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have to think into it, because at the same time, I do think millennials are a lot easier on specific characters, specifically in fantasy, like Nesta from ACOTAR. Millennial women are much more likely to see that as like, oh, this was a girl struggling
Mhm.
and this is how she went about it. Gen Z doesn't give a lot of grace when it
Yeah.
comes to the human experience,
Yeah.
because between millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha, the younger generation than us, the kids now, Gen Z is the most sensitive and the most like they won't cut you slack which is on one hand good because there is no room for hatefulness and hatred, especially to a lot of groups that spent most of their life being hate crimed.
Yeah. They're getting down.
They are partying back there. I don't know what that is. But also at the same time, it's the if you have any type of digital footprint,
It's going to get brought up.
it's gonna get brought up. And if you have ever made a mistake that somebody didn't like, it's very what about me? If you offend, it's not just hatefulness anymore. It's you can't offend anyone.
And also there is the what about me isms of the
Mhm.
internet of, hey guys, today I'm making this strawberry bread. What if I'm allergic to strawberries? Then you obviously don't make the fucking strawberry bread, you dimwit.
Yeah,
Like, it is
there
not
is
hard. Not
millennials-
everything has
millennials
to
don't
be
do
about
that.
you.
Yeah, millennials don't do that because they were raised in a time where it's like, oh yeah, like you it was common knowledge that as a teenager you did dumb things, and
Mhm.
as a 20 in your 20s you said dumb things,
Yeah.
but it wasn't. They didn't have. They wasn't brought up. There were there weren't the repercussions weren't the same.
Weren't as drastic.
because there's prove it. You know,
Right. You
What-
can't.
prove what they did. It's
Yeah.
not on the internet.
Yeah.
They didn't have it.
Yeah.
And if they did, those people are screwed because
Yeah.
Gen Z will find it. And it's a very high stakes environment to live in, to feel like your every move is being watched.
Yeah. Doesn't know a whole lot of Gen Alphas, and the ones that she does know, she does not fuck with at
Yeah,
all.
she's a nurse, so
Yeah.
she does.
She does
deal with
interact with a
children.
lot of people, and she was saying Gen Alpha reminds her of boomers.
Well, and she made
Which
a
is-
good point. Boomers currently, they don't care what they say, who they say it to.
Who
It
it
is
offends.
It's about them, and
if
they
it could be borderline hate crimey, like they
They
don't
are-
care.
and they are unapologetic, good
Yeah.
or bad.
Yeah.
Gen
And
Alpha,
Gen Alpha's the
very similar.
Very similar. They don't care
They
about
don't care. They want their iPad. They want their blueberry vape. They and they will say anything.
They don't care about any war that's going on
Mhm.
anywhere. They have a TikTok dance to do.
Yep.
Get out of the way.
Yep. And it's giving to me how I perceive James Charles. If you're bad from the beginning, no one can say you can't get canceled.
Bro, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to say this.
He's funny.
James Charles makes me
He's funny.
laugh. I saw
funny.
someone say that on TikTok
Some
the
of
other
the
day.
worst people are funny.
Yeah. Fucking what is her name? HRH. The girl who's constantly screaming. She's terrible, like, as a human. Like, I don't think she's a good person. Like, some of the shit she says is like very
Candace
concerning.
Owens.
I hate Candace Owens. I
But
hate what
she's
she
funny.
stands for, but
But
some of
she's
the
funny.
things that she says out of context can be
Funny.
hilarious. Like, I feel like that's just like, and some Gen Zs, we're obviously like,
We are right smack. I'm
we're,
99.
like,
She's 2000.
and we'll kind of flip the line, toe the line a little bit.
There are some where it comes into the no grace given, no middle ground, no gray area for humor. A lot of the time,
Yeah.
the sensitivity comes in with Gen Z, where they are like,
It really it depends on what kind of Gen Z you're getting, because like
Mhm.
we've definitely met people where it's like, no, don't even joke and say that.
don't make a joke.
Don't
period.
make it, like, you can't joke about that. And then there's some Gen Zs, like boys our age, who are saying very problematic things as like a joke, and like it's just
It's a great. You have there's a gray area.
There is gray area where it's like, okay, there's
If I go to
really-
a comedy show, I'm not going in the mindset of, hey, say something politically correct.
right,
You go to comedy shows, honestly, especially if you sit in the front, which me and Dylan like to do, with the intention of you kind of want them to clock your ass. Like you want them to say something offensive because it's, you know, like I've seen a lot of men specifically say this. A lot of people on Twitter say that comedy's back because of the nature of Gen Alpha. It's coming back where you can say anything now.
Yeah.
Almost for the shock factor of how long you can't say anything. Obviously within reason.
Yeah. I think it's like when you can make a funny joke and still kind of make it like punching up rather than just like you can, I think if most of your humor is punching up, you can say the occasional punching down and like, okay, like was it classy? No. Was it respectful?
No.
Also no. Was it politically correct? Definitely not. But did it get a little giggle out of people? Yes. And I feel like there is definitely like a gray area. Like obviously, you know, like I think you can say something that's not inherently politically correct without being like, oh, I'm going to go hate crime people later.
Here's another one too that I see a lot with Gen Z on BookTok. Specifically dark romance.
Yeah.
Dark romance is rarely actually ever healthy real life mindsets.
Yeah.
No woman actually wants, well, most women, you know what? No woman wants to be like in a relationship or situation like a dark romance. No one wants to be a mafia wife.
Right.
Okay? Relax.
Or have actual Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah,
like,
if we're
nobody wants that.
But there are a lot of people who it's like for a hot minute there, Haunting Adeline was very, very trendy.
Yeah.
And then the more people started reading it, there were some people who were like,
this is problematic.
Which like
to a certain,
you know, that's a hard one.
It's a gray area because it's like, yeah, it is problematic because like, yeah, we shouldn't be like,
we should not be
interview that Billie
normalizing.
Eilish did, where she talks about like the corn industry and how it's so normalized to be violent towards women. And like, that's definitely not something men are already very violent towards women. So we don't need to like be normalizing that. But like,
it's a tough one because read it.
It's really hard.
You read, a lot of women love dark romance.
Yeah.
And there are certain things where it's like, ooh, like there is some, it is.
And there is the real like kinky side of.
And a lot of also too, like on like a psychological standpoint, a lot of people say, not that I'm a psychologist by any means, but a lot of people say that like the things you're into derive from different traumas. Can go back as far as childhood. And the thing is, it's like, what's the line between super unhealthy, bad, non-consensualness and something
kink.
That's just like a little kink?
Yeah.
It's what you do in your personal, intimate relationships, and it doesn't affect anybody else.
Yeah.
That's a very hard line, especially with books. And I too think I get very nervous when I see young people, Gen Alpha, reading some of those books because
I don't think anybody under the age
it's an adult book for a reason.
And I don't even think like an 18-year-old.
Nah.
Should be like young girls and young boys are so
and there is
susceptible.
There's
to
a
the
type of
things in those
addictiveness
books.
that comes from it.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of men will mistake books in general that women like to read for the equivalent to a corn addiction.
Yeah.
And it's so not the same thing.
Absolutely.
Because 99% of the books that a lot of women read that are really popular on BookTok, and I think a lot of women would agree, is just men having emotional intelligence and actually loving and caring and worshiping, obviously within reason, but like really doing what it means to love a woman and actually like women even.
Yeah.
And
it's hard because most of the
so when
dark romance is written by women, so the men do not feel inherently scary or violent or harmful.
But that's also why these are, honestly, I would say more fantasy than a real fantasy book.
Yeah.
Because
a man who is like Haunting Adeline, we haven't read it.
But the reality situation is I do plan to.
I do also plan to. And like, but I think he is like a stalker.
He is, yeah.
And like
He owns, as far as I know,
he owns like the video surveillance.
the video surveillance that her house is wired with.
Yeah. So like that's it is creepy for sure. And I don't know how we'll feel about it once
But I
we
think
read
you
it.
put it in a really good way where because they're written
by a
by a
woman.
lot of women, the men are not written inherently scary.
Right.
It's a scary situation. And you get the inner monologue of a man who's not inherently evil, which is not realistic.
Right.
And so it's like, yeah, those situations are not real. That's ridiculous, Olive. Oh my God, she's scratching her nails on the glass door.
That was terrible. That was awful.
That made my teeth hurt.
Oh, that was dentera.
That was really
is what
bad.
That was.
Yuck. But yeah, no, I think that can get where it's a little dicey.
Yeah. It's hard. I feel like that's kind of like everything on BookTok, and like this has been a recent discourse on BookTok, millennial and Gen Z alike, even including Gen Alpha if we wanted to. We shouldn't, but if we wanted to. There is so much nuance in every single conversation, and like it's hard to, and like I saw someone talking about Chapel Roan with this, like sometimes what you say, exactly how you say it, can come off in a way that is negative or bad. But if you take into consideration like the nuance behind what they were saying, it can just change completely.
This is another thing too, leading from the Chaperone thing. Obviously, there's been a lot of discourse with Chaperone on what she said about mothers.
Yes.
And the moms that she knows. And I think a trope that is inherently consumed by millennial is mom and pregnancy tropes.
Yeah.
Whereas Gen Z, normally from what I've seen and from my personal experience,
Hates them.
can't stand a pregnancy trope, can't stand a mother trope.
Yeah.
Because we are I think that's one of the biggest differences in women between millennial and Gen Z generations. Gen Z women, a lot of them do not want anything to do with
like,
motherhood or children.
And I feel like this might be crazy. So I'm going to preface. Millennials, not all the time. Okay, again, is like
everything with a grain of salt.
This is obviously, there's very, like, you have to, it is very nuanced. But like millennials, there is a lot of gray area. With Gen Z, a lot of the time, it doesn't feel like there's any really like gray area. It feels like black or white, right and wrong. Not right and wrong, but it's just like
it can feel like right and wrong sometimes, and it's
yeah, because I feel
exhausting.
like there's like the side of Gen Z like you and I would typically fall on. Like having a baby is such a complex thing. Having children and, you know, being a mother, like there's a lot to it. And like we think about that, but a lot of the times when we talk about it, it comes off as, oh, I fucking hate moms. I hate kids.
Every
don't ever
mom
want to be
chaperone. Every mom looks miserable.
Like it comes off very like aggressive. And then there's like the other side of Gen Z.
I think Gen Z is an angrier generation.
Yes.
Millennials they're too depressed to be angry.
Yeah. But like then there's the other side of Gen Z that is so like, they're like, bring back 1950s trad wife and you don't deserve rights and also don't vaccinate your kids.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's like literally one or the other. It is so hard to find like a middle ground of like, oh, let's talk about being a mom
could also
and
be
the complexities that come along with it.
That could also be very just inherently internet culture.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
We are the first generation to be majority internet culture raised. And I think too, it's a lot of like, our Gen Z is much more likely to be like, oh, if you think being a mother, if you say, oh, it looks really miserable, very Chapel Roan-esque, and then everybody else especially in Gen Z is going to be like, well, you hate mothers, you never should have children, you must hate kids. It's like if you have one stance on it, you're on that side.
Yeah.
And you're like, actually, no, I think having kids is
kids
a really
can be very
formative
beautiful.
part of being a human. They're like, you are such a traditional. You get back to the 1950s and you get yourself back in that kitchen.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, right. So they didn't say that.
Yeah.
And millennials are a little more.
Except for the people who genuinely don't believe in vaccines.
Yes.
They are actually
But then there are people in that are millennial moms, that there are one type of millennial mom I feel like kind of it was almost like their last hope. They got to a point in their upbringing, their 20s, where they were like, well, I tried everything. I went to college. I got married. I tried to get a house. I can't. The last thing there is to do is have a kid.
Baby.
Have a kid. And then they get so depressed that they don't actually spend much time with that kid or spend much time talking to that kid, nonetheless really parenting. And that might piss a lot of people off, but even like my sister my sister had her first baby at 16. So she has a young Gen Z. And then she
Old.
had, no, she's a young Gen Z.
She would be a very, very late Gen Z.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess you're right. Young in age.
Young in age.
Not young in the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was like right on the cusp of Gen Z, Gen Alpha. Then she had a baby at 21, right at the beginning of Gen Alpha, and then she had a baby at 29, who is I don't even new
Middle.
generation, I guess.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I don't know.
We're still on Gen Alpha. Anybody
Okay.
being born right now.
So she's got the spectrum of it, and even she said like her first baby, she was at home. It was very we are a village, like it takes a village mindset. She had my mom, my grandma, me and my sisters.
There was like this influx of hustle culture that came in circa
Mhm.
like
It was like
2015.
Yeah. Hey, Olive, so you're going to have to cut that out.
She says, I can't.
Scratching is going to worm itself into my brain.
I'm not opening that door. It's 80 degrees outside. We're not air conditioning the free world.
Anyway, but then she said that, she had her second baby, and she was a Navy wife also, very like all over the place, very isolated. And she was not in a good place, and it was a very, very hard time to parent and not have people around. And I feel like millennials got really impacted with
They got really fucked.
they got really impacted with like, hey, I know you're all depressed, but also if you need a nanny or daycare or
bad
help,
mom.
you're a bad mom.
because you should be able to do it all on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the part I think that
Makes them look miserable.
right, that Gen Z is like trying to call out. And I don't feel like a lot of the time we don't do it in a healthy way. And that's the problem, is that it's really hard. It's really hard to talk about nuanced conversation when everybody is so this or that and cannot find
The middle ground.
and cannot look any deeper into the subject without just like freaking out and screaming.
And I think too, that's why I've seen this too in comments on other people when they kind of,
Oh my God, a roly-poly. I haven't seen one of those in years.
wow, nature. When they comment on pregnancy tropes or mom tropes, they don't like to see other people not like them,
Yeah.
because I feel like there's also the type of millennial mom that is very defensive, and we've seen this come out a lot after Chapel Roan's interview, which I don't even fully have my opinions on her interview, but like
it's hard to
it's
create
hard.
an opinion on Miss
But
Kaylee.
with the moms, there's a lot of moms coming out that are really hating on her, and I think it honestly feeds into the narrative that makes Gen Zers not want to have kids.
Yeah.
Is because it feels like, oh, it looks, when you're manic on TikTok,
It makes it look
it
worse.
makes it look like I'm so
I'm
happy.
having a
I'm
good
so
time.
happy.
Like, baby, who's holding a gun to your head? You don't.
Yeah, and it's like it seems like they're trying to convince themselves
Yeah.
that there is, if they start to say, "Oh, I'm struggling," or "Oh, this is really hard," but I'm actually the happiest I've ever been.
Yeah.
Baby, you don't have to.
You don't have to convince
to be
me.
happy.
Yeah.
If you are, that is awesome. And you can be. This is a big thing too. You can have two emotions at one time.
Yeah.
You can be going
because there is complex
Mhm.
human emotion.
You can be going through the hardest part of your life, physically, mentally, and still have deep, overwhelming love and joy for your child.
Yeah.
That can be
Those two things can be true at the same time.
But I think a lot of women are very scared to come to terms or even consider the idea of
Olive, for the love of Christ, all 12 disciples, Mary and God, please stop.
anyway.
She hates me.
she's just scratching at the door again, and it's the worst sound known to man. It's really ruining the ambiance of nature. She's like,
Anyways,
"What the
we
hell?"
should probably wrap it up
Yeah.
soon anyways.
But I feel like they get really worked up on thinking that people think they're unhappy, or considering that maybe their situation wasn't ideal, or
Right.
if especially if they didn't plan on having a pregnancy. Women are very good at, not that I'm saying this happens to everyone all the time, but I would argue that it seems like a lot of women have an unplanned life course, an unplanned child. It gives their life a turn in a direction they didn't initially anticipate. Maybe shit hits the fan. Maybe the father's absent. Maybe something goes south, and they are so afraid of looking like they weren't happy with every decision that was made, or to say this wasn't what I thought my life would look like.
Yeah.
Because then it's seen as, do you hate your kids? No. It can be very different, separate situation.
Yeah.
But it makes it feel like, oh, when people get so worked up and they can't handle you saying that they might not look like a life that you want to have.
Yeah.
They're like, no, but my life is perfect and amazing, and right? Isn't it? Isn't my
Yeah.
life okay? Yes, baby.
It's good.
It's good.
You
It's
can relax. I just personally don't want it.
And yeah, and it's okay even if you were to admit that maybe it was a little hard
Yeah.
even.
Yeah.
But no, I think that would be probably one of the biggest differences, is how we see motherhood,
Mm-hmm.
and how that, especially in rom-coms, and how that comes
Mhm.
about.
And the different tropes that
Mhm. And the thing is, people like to
generations
see,
like.
every generation likes to see themselves
Portrayed.
in something.
Yeah.
If you like to see this couple, personally, one of my least favorite things to happen, this couple got together in college and they're both so big in their career, and the man gets to stay in his career in the 2-year epilogue, and the wife gets pregnant and stays home.
Yeah.
Drives
wanna
me up
see
the
it.
wall. I don't want to see
wanna
it.
See that.
But
Some people
a lot of women feel very comforted
by that.
by that, because that's, everybody likes to see
Represented.
themselves.
Yeah. 100%.
And it can cause some rift there,
Yeah.
especially when it's like, oh, that seems like
It's
unrealistic.
hard to like, we can kind of wrap it up after this note,
Yeah.
but it is really hard to like, I forgot what I was going to say. Fuck.
Overall, I think the best thing though about it is like,
I remember what I was going to say.
Okay.
It's really hard to talk about like, fun differences between generations
mhm.
and like silly, goofy, blah, ha, 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 without then going into something
There's
deeper,
some deeper
and then
ones
going
in
into
there.
something even deeper, and then getting like really deep into like societal.
Because at the end of the day, books, they wouldn't have burned books. There wouldn't be there wouldn't be books like, what was that? The one something Firehouse 47 or something. It's like read in schools, and it's about all the books get
Fahrenheit
burned.
51.
Yes.
Fahrenheit 451.
Yes.
Yeah.
I said Firehouse 47.
I think it's Fahrenheit 451.
If books were not inherently societal and cultural and
provoked
and-
thought,
and a lot of times political, and that's kind of a big thing when it comes to authors, and people write when they have something to say. So a lot of it is fun, silly, goofy, but a lot of it
there is deeper.
rooted in a lot of
It
different
does make you think a lot more.
Yeah.
And that's why you cannot stop reading.
You cannot stop reading.
You have to
keep your
reading.
books,
Keep your
especially
books. Don't
and I know a lot of people are Kindle readers. Try to buy your books too, because
They can't burn hard copies. They
Yes.
can't block. Like if it's on the internet, they can find a way probably to take it away.
not to get
Not
you know
to
what?
get-
Never mind.
Not to get
Never mind.
conspiratorial on the podcast. We start freaking out, tell people to go inside and build shelters. Because build a shelter. You have to go underground and
Keep your
build
books.
build a library bunker because they're going to take your books. We're getting
But I think one of the best things about it is that with BookTok in general is that even if millennials think Gen Zs are cringe, or Gen Zs think millennials are cringe, or even Gen Alpha decides to show up at one point, is that at least for the girls, it is the safest place on the internet that I have ever found.
Yeah, I love.
And I think that is so special.
I think that it is
It's
just so special. It is
So,
just so special and so beautiful.
this is the longest episode book club we've had in a while, and I think rightly so. If you're a millennial book girly, I love you. If you're a Gen Z book girly, I love you.
And if you're in another country and it's different in other countries,
We want to know.
I want to know the tea.
Yeah. How are your generational divides? Are they
Because-
even prominent?
Yeah, because in like obviously we're very American
Yeah. Media capital of the world.
and we consume a lot of media,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got
Yeah. It's a very interesting topic.
yeah.
So,
We'd love
let
to
us
know.
know your thoughts.
And if you ever want another video like this, let us know. We can do like Gen Z versus Alpha.
Oh, yeah. That'd be
That'd
scary.
be a crazy one.
We're scared of them.
We are so scared. of them.
Anyways, thanks for coming to book club. Follow us on everything: Instagram, TikTok, Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube.
Fable.
Follow us on Fable. Follow our book club on Fable. We're also on Goodreads.
I'm not.
You're not at all?
I stopped doing it.
Okay,
I'm
well,
really
I'm
inactive.
on Goodreads a little bit, but I do mostly do Fable. And our new YouTube channel where we post little bookish girly not short form, but short form in comparison to a
Shorter
podcast.
this, yeah.
Regular YouTube videos that have just like some little bookish content that are really fun, and save Maddie's new single Stockholm Syndrome on May 30th.
Yeah.
Yay!
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.